I just want to introduce our next speaker, Andy Murray from the National Space Academy. Now, our charitable purpose is all about enhancing the safety of life and property on land, at sea and in the air. And I think that we should add in a vacuum to that as well, so that we can do more space-related stuff. I'm just going to introduce Andy and his background. Andy McMurray joined the National Space Academy as Head of Teaching and Learning in 2014. It's been there a few years. So Andy has a degree in physics from Loughborough University, and then went on and did his postgraduate certificate of education at Leicester, and then went straight into teaching, and has now spent 28 years teaching the age group from 14 to 19, including 8 years as assistant principal. If that wasn't enough, on top, Andy has completed an MBA in educational leadership and management, also at Leicester. Andy now continues to teach physics as part of the National Space Academy's engineering course. And Andy's going to describe now the support that we're able to give to the Space Academy and how that is contributing to inspiring the next generation of people into STEM.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. It's quite interesting. A few of the speakers said early on how nervous they were. And throughout my career, give me a group of 500 truculent teenagers, I'm fine. Working on the basis they're probably not listening, but you guys probably are. A little bit into what I want to do is just try to explain what the National Space Academy is, where the Lloyd Register Funding Foundation goes, and what our impact is. And my target, my thinking was, my brief is unintended consequences and international impact. So first of all, what do we do? We are trying to deliver STEM skills and inspiration, and we develop different programs, and we deliver from the primary school support programs all the way up to the graduate level. But within the context of those programs, we think about the number of participants. So at the primary school support programs, that might be quite light touch, but high levels of participants. All through, I focus a lot on my work at GCSE, and I teach my A-level students, that smaller participants, and then right up to the undergraduate level, but the depth of interaction. So our program's designed, the inspiration level, and that's, if you like, the wow, using that. I always say, sorry, I'm a teacher, and I have anecdotes, don't I? I won't spend too long on anecdotes. Space and dinosaurs. You know, give me space and dinosaurs, and I can inspire any student. But as I move up the age range, the interactions get deeper, but they become more lasting. How do we do this? And this is where the Lloyd's funding. This is where the money goes. This is the nitty-gritty, if you like. I lead a team of what I call lead educators. And we spoke about this at the start of the symposium, about networking. I was just sitting there in awe, as everyone was, about the last speaker. And I was trying to relate it to the program that we run and the similarities and the differences. Those circles are showing where my lead educators are. These lead educators are outstanding teachers who the funding allows us to second them from their schools, and they will come out and they will deliver our programs. So when we're doing teacher training or when we're doing master classes for our students, we can say these are real teachers who are actually at the forefront of what's going on in education and can share those skills. That's our team. That was taken at Rouse Space, so you can see that's our team of lead educators and project scientists. And why is the writing in Chinese? I'll come back to that. I'll come back to the minute. I'll even give you an interpretation of it. So that's a little view of who our team are. Unintended consequences was one of the focuses I want to speak about. And this is one of the unintended consequences. That's at a Big Bang Fair. Now, We don't, at the Big Bang Fair, hopefully most colleagues here are probably aware of what the Big Bang Fairs, we don't do the stall holding at the Big Bang Fairs. That's not sort of our remit. Our remit is education. Our remit is taking science education, the students, the GCSE science, the A-level science, the Key Stage 3 science, and using the context of space to engage and to teach curriculum delivery. But one event we do run, and this is at Exeter University, is what's called the mega class. Now, I'm not going to sit here and claim I think that's the biggest class in the country, but there's 550 students. I'm on stage and I'm teaching them for an hour. I do it 3 times, so that is a big class. I'm clearly supported throughout the room with STEM workers, so STEM volunteers will come in and I train them on activities. But the activities we use are actually teaching science, the science that have been done in school, and we try and interpret and use the space of the context to teach the science they're looking at. And it's a very daunting experience, teaching 550 students. Actually trying to shush people is quite problematic. Unintended consequences. I do a lot of teacher training. That's my background as sort of in schools. When I was working in schools, I was in charge of CPD and teacher training. And I do a lot of work with groups of teachers, both locally and internationally. This is actually the Space Centre, the National Space Centre in Leicester, where we are based. And I've had groups of teachers from all around the world come in to visit. And this is a group of Nigerian teachers. They're very senior leaders. Some are heads of science, but most of them are principals. And so not necessarily science teachers, but I trained them for a day. And I was showing them about how you can actually use quite simple equipment, quite cheap equipment to actually teach science. And one of the head teachers, the sort of anecdotal quote, their head of science back in their school was complaining about facilities and they couldn't teach science because they haven't got any equipment. And I showed them they are building telescopes. Anyone's been through sort of recent GCSE science will see that's a simple telescope being built out of a fairly crummy school ruler and a couple of lenses that have seen better days. How you can actually build a functioning telescope and the optics work you can teach from that. And they took these ideas. One thing he was going to say was actually he was going to see his head of science say actually you can teach science without much equipment. You just need a bit of sort of imagination. One of the other places I've done a lot of work at, and again, this is where the funding goes to. This was working with the University of Sharjah. This was in the UAE, a summer school. So this was in the Emirates. It's very similar. It's sort of the same as the National Space Centre. It's a visitor attraction centre in Sharjah, and they run a summer school for students and for teachers. And I was able to go over there and delivered on that program. And they're the teachers. There are local teachers who I'm training and giving them CPD and showing them an idea of how to use, again, very simple equipment. It's a CD, a balloon, and a bottle top, how I can actually teach Newton's laws and how then they can use the idea of that into momentum, etc. One of the unintended consequences is one of the ladies there is actually a teacher trainer in Sharjah. So I'm in fairly regular contact with her now, and we share activities. So some of our ideas she's actually using to train teachers in the UAE. I put that in there only because I think that's sort of maybe a typical picture of perhaps an Englishman abroad. It's about 48 degrees heat. I'm in the sun wearing a shirt and tie, launching rockets. But that's a sort of it's in the planetarium. It's outside, and in the grounds they have models of the planets. It's an amazing place, and we were trying to hit the Earth with our rockets, and well, one of them did manage to get there. But that's just an activity. Again, I was showing the teachers how that works. Another big area for us, and this is really an area where the Lloyd's Register's funding has unlocked, is in China. We do a lot of work in China, and that really has been moved up now to the formal level. Our director, Professor Ojar, has signed now a memorandum of understanding with some leaders at the Beijing University to work now on a formal level for developing student masterclasses, teacher training within China and reciprocal. This summer, groups of teachers and groups of students are being funded by the Chinese government to come to the UK, work with ourselves, Leicester University, and develop these links all about developing STEM education. And the reason why I showed you that picture a little while ago, a few minutes ago, was of our team. Underneath were our objectives. And obviously, I did a typical Google Translate, and the translation of our objectives in Chinese actually got them perfectly. The translation's superb. Improve students' performance in STEM. Improve the effectiveness of science and maths teachers. Connect students to the space and engineering, aerospace sectors. All this through the inspirational context of space. And I think that summarises everything that we do. Student masterclasses in Shanghai. I've been sort of given the 1 minute, so I'll go through them quickly. Teacher training courses in Shanghai and Beijing. So it's where the funding is going, examples of our work. And quickly, show you one unintended consequence. If you can recognise the person in between, there's myself and our director, the person who sort of photobombed our picture was Tim Peake, the UK astronaut. One of the activities that I did was design some experiments that got space qualified, got flown to the International Space Station, and Tim Peake conducted these experiments, and these videos of the experiments are being used in schools in the country and indeed further afield. And I tell the story about how I spent a year and a half getting this equipment space qualified. And in my naivety as a school teacher, I thought once you got qualified, I didn't expect a great announcement or anything, but I thought you'd get a sort of, quite a nice letter. Well, actually, what you get sent is a fairly crummy PDF of a certificate, and that says I can fly stuff into space. And I'll finish with, there I am, one Sunday afternoon watching the launch at home on NASA TV, telling my friends, there it's going on the NASA TV, their quotes were, it appears to be a non-nominal launch. It was clearly unmanned. It was an unmanned transfer vehicle, and my experiments of going to the International Space Station are now falling back and dropping into the specific somewhere. Lost. So there you go. There's a lesson you learn, but you always have a backup, and we managed to get it launched on a Soyuz, and the equipment got into the space station. I won't give the anecdote about that it was then lost. It was actually generally lost on the space station, but they found it in the end. So thank you for listening. I hope I haven't spoken too quickly. I am keeping time. I am keeping you from lunch. But I hope that gives you some background of what the Lloyd's Register Foundation allows the National Space Academy to achieve. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's spot on.
Thank you.
A great example there of a little goes a long way. Andy, we're a bit tight for time, so look out, Andy, over dinner if you've got any questions for. I'm sure everybody has. I just want to thank our speakers for this opening session today. Got us off to a great start, covered some really powerful stuff, and showed the breadth and depth of what the foundation gets up to. It's lunchtime now. I think everybody's earned that. Blood sugar's getting a bit low. Please, please, please come back for the afternoon session. We've got some really, really great stuff this afternoon. Great keynote speakers. Saiful Islam's going to talk about energy materials in 3D. If you think you've seen Saiful before, you have. He was on the television as a BBC Christmas lectures. Great talk on blockchain technology, probably the biggest disruptive technology, in my view, that we're facing. And then we've got a keynote speaker as well Professor Sir Mark Walport. He spoke at our last conference when he was UK's chief government scientific advisor, and he's now coming back as the head of UK research and innovation. So he's in charge of all UK public expenditure on research and innovation. And he's going to talk about the connection between that and our foundation. And then we've got a very powerful session at the end of today from our trading entity, the business entity of Lloyd's Register, who's going to talk about the work of the group and how, working together with the foundation, we make the world a safer place. So hope that inspires you. Have a great lunch and see you back here at 1 o'clock. Okay? 12:55. 54. Thank you.